Howdy folks, AJ coming at you again, your resident vintage gamer. Today's video is going to be about Dungeons & Dragons. Now, the reason I'm doing this video is that I finally got in touch with a couple of guys that I used to play D&D with back in my Army days when I was very first stationed at Fort Sill, Oklahoma back in 1985, from about 85 to 87. And so I didn't want to post these because there's some pictures I'm going to put in here, and I didn't want to use them without talking to these guys first or anything. But I've already published these on Facebook, and they were cool with it. So I figured I'd do a little video here to talk about it. So back in that day, D&D was separated into, you had regular basic D&D, which is what this was, and then you had Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, which was just a more, as the term would suggest, it's a more advanced version of the game. In the basic game, you had a limited number of races and classes and so forth, and then in the advanced game, they expanded upon that and added additional ones. So, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be talking about the basic game because in at least one of the pictures you're going to see later on, you're going to see this book, one of these books right here, one of these of the black, these were called the Master's books. And the reason that I bring that up is because there was actually several sets, and I'm going to show them to you here. There were several sets of books for the basic D&D game, starting with the one that matches the shirt here. These were the basic rules. You had the player and the DM book. And then the next one was what they called the expert rules. Now this one, for some reason, they only did one book of. They don't have a separate one for player or DM. It's got both in here, two different sections. And then the next one was what was called the companion books. They were light blue. You had a DM and a player section, or each individual book for a player and dungeon master. And then next one was the masters that I've already shown you, player and DM book. And for whatever reason, in one of the pictures you're going to see, we were using the masters rules, and I wasn't DMing, so I'm not sure why we were, but we were, which at that, for the basic game, the Masters rule set was pretty advanced. So, and then finally you had the gold set, player and DM books, which was called the Immortals set. And what this meant was, these were specifically for when your characters had become so powerful that they had become immortal. And they actually had this specific set of rules to deal, for the DM to deal with it, and for players to understand how to play their characters as immortals. So, anyway, that was, and each one of these came in a separate, of these colors, came in a separate box set. So, the expert rule book, like I said, only had one book, as opposed to the rest that had two. And that one in the box set, you actually got a separate adventure module. I think it was the Isle of Dread was the one that came in the box set with it. So with that, I'm going to lead you into these photos of what we were when we were gaming back in the day. Now this is in one of our, I don't remember whose room it was, but you had each barracks room had usually room for two people. There was basically two roommates to a room. There were some at some points that had enough room for three, but generally you had two people to a room. So the rooms weren't that big, but it was the only place that for us to play D&D. You really didn't have anywhere else that you could spread out and play. So that was pretty much what it was. So you can see it looks a little cramped in there and everything. But you might get a kick out of seeing some of the old stuff. There's one picture where, if you look hard, you might actually see a Commodore 64 modem, it looks like, sitting in a plastic wall pocket thing. It looks like it's sitting in there. I don't remember. I don't think it was. I definitely wasn't my room because I don't remember having. Although I did have my Commodore 64 then, so no, that came later. So it definitely wasn't my room. So, but anyway, there's other stuff that you might get a kick out of seeing, and I'll explain it as we go into the pictures themselves. So here we are in the middle of an old D&D session. Back in the day, we've got our D&D books. You can see some of the vintage stuff there, and then of course we've got the Crown Royal dice bag, which is instant vintage gamer street cred. So here we've got Mitch, the DM, and myself on the left. Don't know why I'm making that that face. I have no idea why. Here is two members of the Wild Bunch and a couple other guys from the unit. Mitch and myself. Again, don't know why we're making faces and everything. No idea. Here's Garza displaying his drinking prowess for everybody to see with his Texas flag flying proudly behind him. And we've got Mitch here, who was the DM. He was a little drunk, a little tired at this point, and I think it might have been time to call it a night. And finally, we've got Garza, who had a little bit too much and made it all the way down to the floor. I'm not sure that he ever got back up that night. I think that might have been where he ended up. Okay, so there you have it. You've seen that. You have seen the pictures on how we used to roll back in those days. And I'm sure you picked up on it that we were such dorks that we thought it would be a good idea for us to get matching shirts that said I think it had like a blue orc, which I don't know who thinks that orcs are blue. I mean like baby blue, you know, not like, you know, not kind of a gunmetal blue or something like it, where maybe you could kind of, no, it's like baby blue orc, and it said Wild Bunch, and we thought those were the appropriate shirts for a D&D group, and we had to get our names each put on. I mean, you know, we went the whole way with it. You know, we weren't going to go halfway with it. We had to go the whole full douche, you know. So anyway, yeah, that's a blast from the past right there. I don't know if you guys get a kick out of this video or not, but for me, it's nostalgic to see back in the day how things were. But I will say one thing about that group. That was when and I'd already been playing D&D for, I don't know, maybe, let's see, I was 18 then, so 8 or 10 years, something like that, I'd already been playing. So, but that was when I first learned that D&D did not just have to be that you got a group together and you went to a dungeon and you went dungeon crawling, and when you finished the dungeon, you were done. I mean, that until I met these guys and everything, that's kind of how it was. But these guys, particularly, introduced me to how you could have an entire evening of adventures just in a town. You know, if you had a good DM who could actually create content on the fly and kind of ad-lib as they went. Because we had, you know, in addition to going out and doing dungeons and stuff like that, we just had all kinds of different adventures and things that took place right there in town. If I remember correctly, and I think that I do, my character even managed to, my character was a thief, and I met a female magic user who I ended up marrying in the game, and that was a whole nother aspect to the game. And then she ends up, of course, the DM, being good, decided that he would throw a monkey wrench into things, and of course she gets kidnapped, and then there you go. That leads you off into a whole new adventure that he has to figure out how it's going to go once he decides that she gets kidnapped. Of course, we're going to go after her, you know, because she was not only was she my character's wife, but she was an integral part of our party. So that led to a whole nother series of adventures and so forth. And so I have to thank these guys that that introduced me to say, it isn't all about just getting a module, and you guys go and do that module, that dungeon, and then you're done. When you finish it, you're done for the evening or whatever. There was so much more that could go into it, and we'd have marathon sessions where we'd start on Friday night, we'd go until Saturday morning, crash for just a few hours, get back up, and keep going. So we had a ball. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll have much more coming at you guys. I plan to do my next. You guys know that I'm doing a World of Warcraft experiment, and I plan to be doing the next installment into that here very soon. So, until then, we'll catch you guys on the flip side.